Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Dailies on Network Television, your morning program. Today, the 7th of June 2024, where we will be looking at some of the stories that are making it on the front page of the paper, where we are seeing a lot of speculations are coming regarding what will be the new minimum wage. We are hoping that by today, that amount will be made known, as already Labour is getting frustrated with silent treatment coming from the federal government. As well, we are seeing that Governor Mba of Enugu has emerged as the most prudent governor for the first quarter 2024. So quite a number of stories on the front page of the paper. We would love you to join us via Facebook and YouTube. Drop your comment, your views concerning any of the story that is of interest to you. I will be doing the program alongside Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
How you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
Great, thank you. All right, we shall go into the papers, starting with the Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Daily Sun newspaper, reps propose additional state for Southeast pass 98.5 billion naira supplementary budget for FCT. Details can be found on page 27. Cost of governance, CSO applauds Mba for emerging most prudent governor in the first quarter of 2024. Presidency refutes 105,000 naira new minimum wage claim. You can find details on page 26. Presidency Atiku PDP fight over fuel subsidy. Details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, Heritage Bank customers count losses, wait anxiously for the NDIC. Detail found on page 4. Presidency to Atiku, no 5.4 trillion naira fuel subsidy provision in the 2024. Tinubu through fuel subsidy diverting public fund using secret payment. This is coming from Atiku. More detail found in the paper. Rivers Ijaw to the INC. Wike gave more federal appointments to Ijaw. You can find more detail on page 12. And on business economy, CBN will implement bold reforms that make economy work. This is coming from Cardoso, the CBN governor. And on the minimum wage talks, Labour gets restraint as federal government plays waiting game. Labour committed treason by shutting down National Grid, coming from the SGF. No cause for alarm, Edu and Bagudu are saying that. And then we have technical committee to be set up on other things, coming from ministers. More detail found on page 5. Police detain another journalist, Precious Ize, over report on Lagos-based businessman. Detail found on page 6. And I think the number at which journalists are being arrested needs to really be looked into. They need to be given the freedom to exercise their right to actually check as far as the facts are actually true. So they should let them work that. I hope that more will be done concerning the rights of the media. And then still on Vanguard newspaper, reps move to create new state in Southeast as bill passes first reading. And on terrorism, reveals strategies of security agency, Senate tells Tinubu. And on the World Cup, we have Finidi unleashes Enacha Lukman Boniface on Bafana. More detail found on page 31. We have a column as well here on page 17 coming from Lakefa, which you can find what he have to say about that on page 17. As well, we have on the IFC visit to the CBN. You can do well as well to read more detail of that, and that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, Sanwo-Olu commissions 270 units of 2-bedroom flats in Egan, Igando. You can find details on page 15. Nigeria recorded 0 piracy incidents, maritime crimes in 2 years. A report from Oyetola. You can find details on page 4. The big story, come clean on fuel subsidy removal, Atiku tells Tinubu. Alleges illegitimate diversion of funds. Tinubu placed his re-election on the line to drive reforms, coming from Information Minister. Details can be found on page 15. Mixed reactions as Rep pass bill to create new Southeast state. Transcorp CEO backs AHIF Hospitality Leadership Award. You can find details on page 4. And then we have a picture story where we can see Sanwo-Olu commissioning the 270 units of 2-bedroom flat. You can find more details inside the paper, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On the Punch newspaper, National Greek shutdown treasonable coming from the SGF. Reps dump 770 billion naira misuse natural resources fund report. Atiku demands probe as federal government denies fuel subsidy payment. More detail as well in the paper. NGE slam police over journalists unlawful detention. You can find more detail of that on page 7. And the big story here on $3.3 billion loan for crew. Federal government gets $925 million lifeline as Naira trades at 1,481 Naira to a dollar. Afris Bank disburses additional $925 million under $3.3 billion loan for NNPC. More detail found in the paper. The picture story here says motorists groan as flood overruns Lagos-Ibadan Expressway Bridge and others. We can see how people are struggling to get to their place of endeavor as a result of the flood. And then on the Heritage Bank issue, we have stakeholders push for MD and ED's probe. 4 Hajj pilgrims snapped with 2.2 kilogram codeine in Lagos hotel. I take that 4 Hajj pilgrims snapped with 2.2 kilogram cocaine in Lagos hotel. You can find more detail of that on page 4 and 5. Presidency denies 105,000 naira pay as Labour awaits Tinubu's offer. More detail found on page 2, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, 27 convocation. Sanwo-Olu gives Lasso's best graduating student 10 million naira. National Assembly wants investigation into death of Title miners in Niger. PDP to IGP arrest ex-Adamawa Rec Unisa Irina. Says trial delay creating bad precedents. Details can be found on page 30. Hajj 2024 NDLEA arrest intending pilgrims with cocaine consignments in Lagos. Labour Party makes U-turn on obedience directory. Details can be found on page 4. Shoyinka canvasses politics hinged on ethics, truth, and justice. Details can be found on page 30. The big story, alleged 5.4 trillion naira fuel subsidy allocation. Atiku PDP tackle Tinubu. There is no 5.4 trillion naira provision for subsidy in 2024. Presidency clarifies this owns leaked documents on fiscal policy proposal. Details can be found on page 2 and 3. Motorist residents express concern as flood takes over Lagos-Ibadan Highway Long Bridge. Arafat Day is June 15, Eid el-Kabir June 16. You can find details on page 3. 52% of banks accessed 79% of rate insurance companies do not have sustainability report. This is a survey. You can find details on page 6. A new minimum wage. Tinubu receives cost implication from negotiation team as committee resumes meeting. Details can be found on page 2, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Blueprint newspaper, review Nigerian security strategies. Senate tells Tinubu. Troops neutralized 9,303 terrorists, 9,562 surrendered in 1 year. Gunmen killed 7 Bhopal, 5 others in Zamfara State. More detail of the issue of security can be found on page 8. Presidency tackles Atiku over the 5.4 trillion naira subsidy comment. Says leaked document on the fiscal policy proposal not official. So the government needs to come out and give more explanation into, because recently we saw in the paper where Wale Edu submitted a fiscal policy proposal to the president. So how did it leak? If it was leaked, then Nigerians need to know whether it is actually original or it was a fake document. More detail of that story can be found in the paper. And on the issue of Kanu Emirate Tosu, court fixed June 13 for ruling on jurisdiction. More detail on page 6. still issue. Looking at the World Cup qualifier, Boniface Lookman to spearhead the Super Eagles goal rush against Bafana. Detail found on page 32. We have the picture story for another commissioning that will be taking place today at 12 p.m. The venue there is at the Vice President official residence. So we look forward to seeing more commissioning going on as it's almost coming to an end, the commissioning of all of the structures there. And that's all on the Blueprint newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, the big story, governors won't pay above 70,000 naira. This is concerning wage. Uzodinma panel to give report. Federal government didn't offer 105,000 naira, says presidency. Details can be found on page 2. Kaduna's stolen money should be recovered, says Sheikh Husani. You can find details on page 3. Leaked fiscal policy documents not authentic, presidency affirms. Saudi bond intending pilgrims held with 2.20 kg cocaine. Sanwo-Olu gives 10 million naira to Lasu's best graduating student. Details can be found on page 5, and that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
I have to commend the governor of Lagos State for this gesture. I mean, giving the best graduating student. I know there was a time that the best graduating student only gets to go home with a mock. And then just a certificate, and then well done for what you've done. And then a number of people have come to say that we do have all these reality shows that teach no morals whatsoever, and then we get to see the take-home pay for them, and then you wonder, I mean, you just do something that doesn't make sense, no lessons whatsoever, and then you're being awarded for it. So I have to personally commend the governor of Lagos State for this. But my main concern, Rachel, is the fact that governors won't pay above 70,000 naira. Of course, we don't know what the new minimum will be. Speculations that they're already here. We're seeing that the president is coming out to say, debunk that rumor that the president is saying that 105,000 will be the new minimum, which already we've seen Obaseki giving 70,000 naira minimum, which are waiting what the new minimum wage will be. And we've said it from the very beginning, the fact that all the states we've seen, of course, they are not equal when it comes to generating revenue. But of recent, we've seen there's been an addition to the federal allocation that goes to state. And I think that has been one of the concerns for even civil societies, where the government is saying they are not paying subsidy. So people are wondering, if you are not paying subsidy, where did you get the money to add the allocation that you sent? Looking at the fact that even our oil production has reduced, according to the government, they were saying 1.7, but we're saying we're not even up to 1.7 barrel per day. Yeah. I think it's about 1.4, 1.5 per day. Now, where are we getting the money to add to the federal allocation? That's the question the federal government needs to come out and clear. And here we're seeing governors already. So I'm feeling this is just one out of many other governors that are complaining. Anything above 70,000 naira, states will not be able to pay. So right now, what will be because I'm just saying, because I know that I'm hoping that by today we'll see what the government is saying. This will be your new minimum wage, and then we'll know whether Labour will continue with their strike, or they'll say, okay, you know what, we are satisfied with this money already. Private sectors are not happy with it. But this is quite, I'm concerned about it. I don't know what it will be, because even if it's 70,000 naira, that is to say, if your pay was 70,000 naira, so you're not getting anything more than 70,000 naira, so and all of that. But our fingers are crossed. Let's see what it will be and what state governors' body language will be concerning the new minimum wage.
I wish the governor that made that statement, in as much as the writer is saying Uzodima's panel to give report. However, who made this statement is not stated here. But I believe with the tripartite committee is that they are both governors. And our governors are saying we won't pay. It's a concerning statement. And the concern there for me is the won't. There's a difference with can't. It means you don't have the resources. When you say I won't do something, it means even if you have the resources, you are not going to do it. Because when you say, I won't buy this shoe, it's different from I can't buy this shoe. I won't is, I have the money, but I will not buy that shoe.
I didn't make a budget for something.
Exactly. But when you say you can't, it means you are incapacitated at that moment to be able to get that shoe. And that is the concern for me here. Governors won't. You won't or you can't. If you won't, then it is a problem. Do you think that your workers don't deserve 70,000? If not, why won't you pay? because it should be more of we can't, because we have struggled with 30,000 naira minimum wage. How do you think, if the minimum wage, for instance, is 150, how do you think we'll be able to pay that? It's a different thing. But when you say we won't pay it, it's like outrightly saying we are not going to do it, even if we have the resources. So I just need to understand from what angle or on what basis are they saying they will not, we won't pay. Why won't you pay? These are the things that we need answers, because you can't just say we won't pay and then we just let it sit like that. Why won't you pay 70,000 naira?
And you know, Rachel, while you were talking, I remember for the past 2 days we're seeing where most of the papers were getting how much our governors are spending on entertainment.
Yeah,
over 900 billion or so on entertainment just in 3 months, Rachel.
Yeah.
And you are saying you won't. You need to give us an explanation why you don't want to do that.
Exactly.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed and see how this whole thing goes. Let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Friday Leadership newspaper. Federal government and labor mom as Tinubu gets minimum wage report. More detail on page 4, with the writer saying presidency denies the rumor of 105,000 naira rate. Wait for conclusion of talks. Labor minister tells Nigerians, of course, they are becoming, carriers of the news of what they feel it should be. Sanwo-Olu give the best last student 100 million naira. You can find more of that on page 17, and that's all on the Friday Leadership front page of the paper.
On New Telegraph newspaper, Edun submits new minimum wage template to Tinubu. Ministers did not propose 105,000 naira new minimum wage, a statement from the presidency. Afreximbank disburses $925 million oil-backed loan to NNPC Limited. Details can be found on page 7. Senate asks Tinubu to review security agency strategies. Sunday, June 16 is Eid, Saturday is Arafat Day, says Saudi. You can find details on page 4. Hajj 2024 NDLEA arrests intending pilgrims with cocaine consignment in Lagos. NPF has made notable achievements in combating security challenges. This is a report from the IGP. You can find details on page 26. The big story is on energy. Federal government's planned intervention to gulp 1.916 trillion naira, 245.6 million dollars, 4.5 million euros. This is a report to pay 1.7 trillion naira electricity debt through bonds and promissory notes. The writer says Tinubu to global financiers consider more investment in agriculture, others in Africa. Details can be found on page 2 and 5. Unsuspended strike, hospitals may have recorded highest mortality rate in one day. On $5.3 million fraud, U.S. traces stolen funds to Nigeria, Hong Kong, and others. NAMA fan NCAAN lack legal framework to impose $300 helicopter fee, says AON. Details can be found on page 2. Stolen crude, illegally refined products worth 91 billion naira seized in 1 year. Report from the Defense Headquarters. Details can be found on page 26. And then we have a study, new male birth control gel suppresses sperm production. Details can be found on page 26, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
Richard, I find what the SGF is saying concerning this strike. I'm getting a bit worried when he said that obstructing power is treasonable. And I would love a more explanation into what he meant by it being treasonable. We know that the power is still part of some of the government sectors which have the right to actually show their solidarity to the fact that things are not being done properly. Richard, underneath, hospitals may have recorded the highest mortality rate in one day. One of the writer that I could read here says that most generators in government hospitals not functional, coming from medical practitioners. And it's not a lie, Rachel. You need to go to some of our government hospitals. You will testify that you know where the generators are not functional. So the moment there is no power, that is to say that what is going to happen? Patients are liable to stand on their own. We've seen that even where there are functional generators, There is no even diesel to power it. So you need patience to pay. We saw that on our papers, to pay for diesel if you want your loved one to be operated on, or you stand the risk to lose that person. That is just a clear indication of what of the. And so at this moment, I want us to be fair and honest as Nigerians. Who is to blame for this situation? Are we going to blame Labour for saying that, you know what, you've not done right by us, and that is why we decided to go on a strike? And then we're saying that various bodies also joined to show that, you know what, this is not just all about civil servants. This is all about the nation. Our economy is not working. The health sector is not working. We've said this over and over. You go to education, we have some government schools as well, Richard, that you just cannot even believe that human beings are receiving classes in such a place. Let's even go to a tertiary institution. You go to one of the halls where, especially when we're having GST courses, and then you see how jam-packed that place is, Rachel. So if you're an asthmatic patient, you can't even take a lecture in that place. Why? Because the place is so congested, and the government has not provided an alternative for such a place. And here we're having a government official coming to say it's treasonable. Why? Because power was out. And I ask the question, who is to blame? And I know this is what Nigerians are going to ask. Sometimes we hope our leaders can just be, sympathize and also empathize with the people presently on what is happening. So I'm hoping that let's not just have leaders that are quick to say certain things, but sit down and think, what part did we play to make sure that things are this way or things are the other way? I think it's a better way to present the case rather than saying it's treasonable because there was no power. And here we're seeing people are suffering as a result of your own negligence not to do certain things.
I mean, Sele, by now we have already established the fact that our leaders always talk without thinking, because what they try to do is point fingers, but when they're pointing, it is coming back to them. I'm yet to see where the government points a finger and it doesn't come back to them. I just see them playing with words. Today is illegal, and now the big word they are using is treason. And we know that treason, any treasonable offense is a very big offense. In fact, the treasonable offense most of the times is a death sentence. True. Or the other word where you're being banished, or when you're being taken out your country. Exactly. That's what treason means. And then the question is, we've had doctors, for example, going on strikes for a month, and we've never seen on the papers talking about high mortality rate when doctors are not present, the real people that take care of the patient, that treat them, that do the surgery. Even during the strike, we have, so when we have a very patients that are going through dying issue, we have people that stay back. Exactly. And yet there was no high mortality rate. And then for some reason, because Labour decided to go and there's a great shutdown on strike, for some reason everybody just died in Nigeria. And then it comes down to the question that, just as you said, why are our hospitals not getting good enough funding for their generators to be functional? Because a hospital, by virtue of its nature, is not supposed to have power outage at all. We've had grid collapse in the past, that the whole country was on blackout. Why didn't you come out to talk about the mortality rate at that time? Why didn't you? Are you trying to tell me that those grid collapse did not cause anybody to die? Of course. Someone died as a result of those grid collapse. And what is it? Is because we have neglected our power sectors. And secondly, why is a hospital having only one power supply? Why? It's unheard of. It's not, in fact, we are not supposed to hear something like that in the first place. And we're talking about our general, why are you having one power supply? At least 3 different types of power supply. If there's a grid collapse, there are generators. If there is no generator, there are solar panels. Exactly, to be able to power 1 or 2 things. So why are we talking as if Labour is the reason hundreds of millions of Nigerians are dying every single day, when their action is as a result of your inaction? Let's be honest. If Labour didn't have to make you listen to them by force, there won't be any strike in the first place. Your failure is the result of everything that is happening in this country. And Labour is just trying to make you listen to them because you are refusing to listen. You're being insensitive. Labour is supposed to talk once and you listen to them. It's that simple, because they speak for the entire Nigeria. So they are the voices of Nigeria. So when they say something, you know that it is the concern of every other Nigerian. So you listen to them. Do they have to force you or get you to the point of listening to them, coerce you by going on strike or something like that? It's your failure at your face, like just rubbing your failure on your face in a bit of trying to like point fingers at someone else. Let everybody wake up and do what is expected in this country, and let's stop pointing fingers, because every time the Nigerian government tries to point a finger at anybody, it all comes back to them. It just keeps revealing and showing their failures and how they have failed Nigeria, like woefully.
So it's just like a mother telling her child, why are you not growing? Meanwhile, you're not
You're
feeding
not
your
feeding
child
that
properly.
child, exactly.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed and see what the next line of action will be. Well, before we continue with the paper review, we would love to take a break at this moment. You have been listening to us, and I believe you also have a thing or two to add to the situation and also some of the things we have been going through on the paper. So we would love you to drop that comment on our Facebook, and when we come back, we will continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Democracy is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice.
Welcome back. It's still the Dailies, where we have been looking at a number of stories, speculations on what the new minimum wage will be, as well as we have seen some pilgrims were caught with cocaine that were supposed to actually about to fly to Saudi, and then they were caught in Lagos State, as well as we're seeing that the Lagos State governor has gifted the best graduating students of the Lagos State University 10 million naira as a way to encourage him and others as well to do their best in their academics. I am Sarah Elisha Dashamasi, having me Rachel Tenzi. Thank you.
You're welcome, Sarah.
All right, let's take a look at what the next paper is on the Guardian newspaper. Poverty amid plenty. Growing nation of destitutes as homeless kids invade Abuja and the southwest. And we can have that picture, and we remember during the Jonathan regime where he tried to have an emergency school just so that we can take these kids off the street and off the street. And then here we're seeing that they are becoming more and more as a result of poverty. And we hope that the government will do something, because them invading the FCT stand as a risk, because they can be used to actually cause trouble. Still on Guardian newspaper, Tinubu's government under pressure to refute continuance of gun fuel subsidy. More detail found on page 6. Again, federal government fails to agree with Labour on new minimum wage, and then we have, despite losing 318 billion naira to weavers, custom earned 1.34 trillion naira in 3 months. More detail on page 3. No respite for investors as rising costs shrink FMCG firms' earning. Senators seek contract appointment for service chiefs and others. You can find more detail on page 30. and I don't know why we are having the issue of contracts. You can find more detail of why the senators are suggesting that on page 30. Obedient movement belongs to no political party, Obi tells Labour Party. Tougher decisions ahead to reshape economy, says the federal government. Troops fuel oil theft worth 91 billion naira destroyed 3,051 dugout pits in 1 year. More detail of that can be found on page 30, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Daily Independent, federal government debunks allegation of 5.4 trillion naira budget for subsidy payments in 2024. PDP asks IGP to arrest Ari ex Adamawa Rec for prosecution. You can start with the details on the front page. The big story: national minimum wage. Federal government fails to present new offer, raises committee to fine-tune negotiation, says report linking aid with proposing 105,000 naira falls. You can start with the details on the front page. Clearance of $850 million foreign airlines trapped funds deepens Nigeria's image. This is a report from NANTA. Details can be found on page 29. Tinubu to IFC, it's unfair perceiving Africa as backward and unstable. $300 helicopter landing fee lacks legal frameworks and unjustifiable, or AON is saying. Details can be found on page 7. I remain committed, loyal member of Labour Party, Peter Obi clarifies. You can find details on page 7. On cost of governance, Enugu emerges least in recurrent spending in the first quarter of the year. CSO comments Governor Mba. You can find details on page 6. Troops kill 9,303 terrorists, arrest 6,988, rescue 4,641 hostages in 1 year. Akume asks Nigerians to remain calm, says Tinubu is working. The writer under the story: CNG buses ready, rice, other essentials arriving soon. Labour committed treason by shutting down national grid. Sanwo-Olu commissions 270 housing units in Igando. You can find details on page 6. And that's all the news on Daily Independent newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, on minimum wage, Edo Miss Tinubu says no cause for alarm. Detailed inside the paper. Politicians won't go to court if INEC judiciary is fair and upright, comment from Jonathan. Environmental Crimes Tribunal underway, coming from federal government. And on Kano Emirship tussle, court to rule on jurisdiction June 13. Come clean of shady 5.4 trillion naira fuel subsidy deal. Atiku PDP tells Tinubu. Says APC government is sees speed of corruption, deceit. Says president to be accountable to Nigerians. See Africa as destination for growth, Tinubu tells the IFC. You can find more that's talking about the international finance corruption. He's telling them that Africa is a place for growth. You can find more detail inside the paper. And then downside of the paper as well, we have the HOR tells NCC to introduce pay-as-you-go policy for internet providers. More detail can be found on page 2. And that's all on the front page of the Daily Times newspaper.
On First News newspaper, Senate passes bill to increase salaries of CJN Supreme Court justices to 60 million naira. Nnamdi Kanu's legal team demands release, submits 9 judgments to AGF. SGF warns Labour shutting down national grid is treasonable felony. Reps bill to create additional state in Southeast passes first reading. Court sets June 13 for jurisdiction ruling in Kano Emirate tussle. And a tragedy: residents fleeing bandits attack drowned in Niger State. The big story: 5.4 trillion naira fuel subsidy scandal amid presidency denial. Atiku PDP refused to give in. Tinubu's government diverting funds through secret petrol subsidy. A statement from the ex-vice president. APC says speed of corruption. Echoes PDP asks president to come clean. Finance Minister submits new minimum wage template to Tinubu as presidency denies report of 105,000 naira minimum wage proposal. And then we have a picture story where we can see the finance minister presenting the proposal to President Bola Tinubu. Just happened yesterday, and that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On the Metrics newspaper, Afrin Bank disburses another $925 million under NNPC $3.3 billion loan, data found in the paper. 19 Premier League clubs vote in favor of keeping VAR, data found on page 16. On unfuel subsidy, Atiku federal government trade tackles Tinubu's administration diverting public funds through petrol subsidy coming from the ex-VP. Why I visited injured ex-Super Eagles star Tijani Babangida coming from OB. Sanwo-Olu award 10 million naira to last best graduating student, Hill Institution, for contributing to the economy. And on the new minimum wage, hope rises for Nigerian workers. Committee will arrive at a figure today, Ozodema assures. There is no cause for alarm on the ongoing negotiation coming from Edu. Presidency debunk rumor of 105,000 naira as the new minimum wage. Labour strike, SGF condemns national Greek shutdown, calls it treasonable offence. I am not quitting Labour Party, Peter Obi replies NLC. And then we have Izome calls for fair hearing in El-Rufai's alleged corruption case. As well, we have a column also for entertainment, which you can read down on page 14. And then here we are seeing the president saying Africa is ready. This was during when the president welcomed the IFC leadership led by Managing Director Duke to the State House. More detail found in the paper, and that's all the metrics.
On Daily News Hub, shutting down national grid by Labour is treason, SGF declares. On petrol subsidy, Tinubu must come clean, says Atiku. Alleges public funds being diverted through continuous secret payment of subsidy. As federal government insists fuel subsidy is completely gone, says no 5.4 trillion naira provision in budget. $5.3 million fraud, U.S. hunts scammers, traces funds to Hong Kong, Nigeria, and others. Troops killed 9,303 terrorists, 9,566 others surrendered in 1 year. On Ondo Guba, Ayedatiwa has made our job easier, says campaign group. Labour Party vows to pressure, renames Obedient Directorate as Obi vows not to dump party. Senate approves 60 million naira salary for CJ and Supreme Court justices. Kano Emirate tussle, court rules on jurisdiction June 13. On child trafficking, we're investigating many orphanages. This is a report from NAPTI. Still on Daily News Hub, new minimum wage confusion over finance minister's alleged 105,000 naira proposal as presidency swiftly denies media report, says Eden never made such proposal. And at the downside of the paper, which is the last story, 14 people still trapped on the Niger collapse mine site. That's all the news on Daily News Hub.
On this day newspaper, the fraud Heritage Bank NDIC vows to recover 700 billion naira loan advances. Inherited Bank 650 billion naira at the takeover. Declares 99.9% of the 2.3 million insured depositors have balances less than 5 million naira. 4,000 depositors have 5 million naira and above. And then we have payment of insured deposit to commence within a week. More detail found on the front page and on page 5. Federal government direct 150,000 naira government grant be given to each MSME owner. You can find that on page 8. Obi disown LP creation of obedient department, says movement far beyond particular political party. More detail on page 35. Edu present cost implication of proposed minimum wage to the president. Tripartite committee to reach an agreement today. Ambagudu is saying despite economic growth, 40% of Nigerians still live below poverty line. restates commitment to inclusive growth. More detail on page 5. And we have two picture story, one partnership for private sector growth in Nigeria, and the other is the International Finance Corruption delegation at the Vida yesterday, and that's all on the front page of this day newspaper.
On Nature News, Climate Media Center calls for innovative methods of dry season farming. Saloko tax development nations on pledge $20 billion biodiversity funds. Saloko tax developed nations on pledge $20 billion biodiversity funds. Details can be found on page 5. Tinubu reaffirms 25 million trees target by year 2030 as Balarabe pledges enforcement of environmental laws. Details can be found on page 3. Fintiri declares monthly Environmental Sanitation Day in Adamawa. College of Education plans 100 trees to mark Environment Day. Details can be found on page 5. Kano Governor activates environmental actions on tree planting and renewable energy. Nutrition Health Services benefit 5.7 million adolescents in Kaduna. Nature Advocate demands sustainable environmental actions in biodiversity. Details can be found on page 6. ICC stands firm on New York despite India pitch fears. Details can be found on page 20, and that's all the news on Nature News newspaper.
On the Triumph newspaper, on news we have for Children's Day, we are doing well in child education, coming from Governor Yusuf. You can read more detail on what he is doing at the state level to make sure that every child have the right to education on page 5. Obasanjo recalls his experience in Yoda prison. We can find that as well on page 13. And on Democracy Day, Idris donates cash bursars to journalists. You can find that on page 16. Dissolve Emirates pay homage to Emir Sanusi. More detail can be found on the front page, and you can continue on page 6. And we have a picture story where we can see the Kano State Governor Alhaji Abba Kabiru Yusuf in a group photo with children during the International Children's Day celebration in Kano recently. And that's all on the Triumph newspaper.
On Sporting Sun, the big story, 2026 World Cup qualifiers. Lukman Boniface to lead Super Eagles attack. Finidi settles for 4-3-3 formation. Calvin Bassey plays down concerns over late arrival. Kickoff 8 p.m. You can find details on page 2. Waverly discusses Chipper United future. Details can be found on page 6. Mikel Victor Moses make Iwobi all-time Super Eagles 11. Transfer expert provides fresh update on Osimhen's Napoli future. Details can be found on page 6. CR7 breaks Twitter record for commenting on Mbappe's Real Madrid move. Details can be found at the back page. Bellingham to undergo surgery. Jack Grealish asked from Euro 2024. Details can be found at the back page. Messi leads in MLS All-Star voting. And we have Allison's wife reacts to alleged murder case. Details can be found at the back page. Joshua in line to face winner of Fury and Usyk rematch. Details at the back page, and that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
Well, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you for always keeping a date with us. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this
You're
with me
welcome,
as well. Until we come your way next week, please do have a great weekend ahead.